First of all, welcome. So Rawlins is a Church of England academy, and we want you guys, year 9, now halfway through your journey to the end of your GCSEs, to act wisely and make the most of every opportunity. That's kind of our vision and value for the whole school. So hopefully today is all about helping you to make the most of this opportunity and make good choices for you, those wise choices. Okay, so what do we have? Well, we have 50 lessons a fortnight. And in year 10, that will be 3 hours of religious studies, 7 of English, 7 of maths, 9 of science. And some of you might already be thinking about triple science. And if you do get chosen and suggested that triple science is the right choice for you, then there's additional 1 hour each week for you to do period 6. So you can do all the extra content that's in the triple science. You get 4 hours of PE, 2 hours of PSHE, and then this is the important bit at the bottom. We have your options. So there are 3 options you're going to choose. One is from the EBAC suite, as I'll explain, and 2 other options, and they make up your total 50 hours. So we've got year 10 and year 11 much the same. Okay. So what are your Key Stage 4 options? Well, hopefully today I'm going to be able to go through and explain a lot of those bits for you. So first of all, every pupil must choose 3 options. So one of these must be an EBAC subject, and I'll explain what that means, and 2 other subjects. You can't do the same subject twice. It must be 2 different subjects. We are very lucky at Rawlins that we have a really broad variety of courses because we're such a big school, and therefore there's lots for you to choose from. And we also are able to offer some GCSEs, which are mainly assessed through terminal exams. And we're also able to offer BTECs or WEGECs or RSLs, which are assessment throughout the course, which is more with a coursework, maybe some online tests, and you can keep going as you go through with tests, and sometimes you can redo those tests. So there's a big difference between GCSE, where it's all that exams at the end, and those BTEC and WEGEC courses. Okay, so there is a big push, and rightly so, to do languages. And the reality is that this is the academic excellence route. So the government's ambition is for all pupils to want to study a language. But in reality, they recognise that's not right for everyone. And so they set out an ambitious target of 75% of pupils in state-funded mainstream schools starting an EBAC route. That's one humanity, maybe history or geography, and a language by 2024. Now, we recognise that effectively this won't be the right choice for everyone, and so does this, the fact that it's only a 75% target, but it is beneficial for most people. And there are many reasons why languages could be a great choice for you. So to point those out, I hopefully will kind of sell you the main benefits of languages. So number 1 is you've already covered 75% of the grammar already at Key Stage 3. And the Key Stage 3 curriculum is sequenced so that it naturally flows straight into the GCSE. And those pupils who have chosen it in the past have been highly successful here at Rawlins. It's a really good course. So there are other reasons, though, other than just the fact that it's good here at Rawlins. We need to know what are the benefits of languages. And the reality is that languages support your learning in other subjects. Because of your understanding of grammatical structures, that will help you in history, in English, in geography. And so actually, whenever you've got high degrees of writing, maybe you're going on to do A-levels, maybe you're going on to a career in law, actually, they're a really strong basis in that area. Using a language at work could raise your salary by 8 to 20%. So this is a study that effectively was done and actually proved that on average, it's somewhere about 12% higher if you've studied an additional language. So businesses are looking for this because they know that means you've got transferable skills that you can take not just inside the UK, but out and beyond. So as it is, 78% of the world does not speak or understand English. There's a huge potential there for businesses and for you to go and unlock whatever it is you want to do, whether you want to take something around the world, whether you want to go and work as a business and be that part of that process. And that's one of the main reasons. But there's also the additional benefits of a second language, which is that it improves your intelligence, it improves your memory, improves concentration, and it even lowers the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, learning languages improves your ability to think on your feet, which helps in problem solving. It also improves your communication skills because there's an element of speaking and listening. And it's highly regarded by universities, colleges, apprenticeships, and business, as we've already talked about. And you might have heard on the news actually just this week, there is something called the Horizon Project, which is a huge collaboration across the European Union and the UK into billions of pounds worth of funding to do research projects. And again, languages enable you to access that and interact with all those different people and access some of that funding. So this really is one of those things that allows you to stand out and kind of empower yourself to make the most of every opportunity. So I thoroughly recommend languages, but I do understand there is the right level for everybody, and therefore it's not a must, it's just a really strong recommendation. Okay, so how do you decide on your subjects? We, first of all, would encourage you to read and watch the virtual course guides. So these are all on the website. And maybe, for example, you're interested in computer science, or maybe you're interested in art, go and have a look at both the virtual course guides, that's the videos where the teachers are talking to you about them, and also the options booklet where you can go and have a read and a bit more about them. You should also think about what your teacher said at parents' evening and look at your data on Go for Schools. And obviously, you can still right now go and talk to your form tutor, subject teacher, maybe the subject leader. We have careers advisors who are prepped for next week and are available should you wish. So I hope what you're now seeing is how do you decide on your subject areas, and there's a big grid in front of you. Can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see lots of ticks across the screen? Great, thank you. So effectively, these 4 bands are designed to show you where your starting point might be. So we've done CAT scores, CAT tests for all of you, and I'll show you where you can find those as parents and as pupils. And effectively, we want to look at your CAT score. That's the number down here under the Enable, Enhance, Enrich, and EBAC. And then that gives you a bit of a guidance as to where you might be thinking about in your subjects. So clearly, that EBAC route we talked about with humanities and languages, that's really encouraging you. That's kind of the route you should really be taking. But many of you will also be thinking about that same route if you are here in the Enrich pathway. And some of you might want to choose that through the Enable and Enhance pathway, but I recognize that we are about opening up choice and we're not about making sure everyone has to do those options. And that's why that 75% target is there. So effectively, this is designed to guide you as to what you think might be a strong choice for you, given your starting points. Okay, now I said that effectively, if you do triple science, there's this extra period here. And as you can see, it says if recommended. So the science team will actually select based on the data that you've been doing from year 9. You've all been doing that same starting point. And based on that data, they will guide you as to who is going to be the most likely to get really good grades from that course. Effectively, we want you to get the best grades in either combined science or triple science. And it doesn't actually matter whether or not you have done combined science and get 2 grades, or whether you've done triple science and get 3 grades. Both of those will get you on to A level. However, if A-level sciences are your route, what you really want to consider is that triple science is the door to open up that route and make it a little bit easier. The extra 25% is really designed as a stepping stone to make that transition from GCSE to A-level that little bit easier. So if you're thinking about going down that A-level route in the sciences, then obviously triple science is a good step up, but you can still do A-levels in science if you haven't done triple science. And in fact, we have many pupils coming from other schools who don't have the luxury of having triple science as well. We are just, as a big school, able to offer both. Okay, so I said about this idea of this mean CAT score and where could you find it? So I hopefully have got a quick view here of your Go for Schools. So if you log into Go for Schools, either as a parent or as a child, this should be the landing page that you see. Now, if you do this on the browser rather than through the app on your phone, you can see here. And there is a little I button that you can click on. And this little I icon will bring up your student profile. And you can see here, there is some data here called your CAT scores. Now, you did these earlier on back in year 7, and if you have joined since then, we should have managed to catch you up and filled them in. And they assess your non-verbal, your quantitative, your spatial, and your verbal reasoning. And actually, people will be stronger in different things, and that's absolutely normal. But what we want is this average overall, the mean CAT score, and that's the one that we're using to go along with that table. So having a look, this person, 122, would therefore be looking in that EBAC row and thinking, okay, that's the kind of route that I should be looking for. And really, it's about guiding you to make sure you're in the courses that are going to give you the most chance of success. Okay, so what choices are there and what options do we have? So the first bit we said is that you must choose an EBAC. So this blue section here, these EBAC courses, you have to do at least one of those. Now, you might want to choose to do more of that, and that's absolutely fine. And as we already talked about, for some people, doing a humanity, geography and history, and a language is a really advisable step, but everyone must choose one. And then we have this range, and I would say it is a range, from GCSEs here in the middle over to BTECs. And the understanding here is that these BTECs are more coursework and ongoing assessment. As we move this way across back to the EBACs, there is more and more degree of rigor within the exam, and more of that pressure is on that end of the year exam in year 11. So it's just understanding this is graded to try and help you kind of understand where they are in that journey. The other thing just to point out while we're on this page is that we have some stars here alongside GCSE Dance, GCSE PE, and GCSE Music. And we recommend that pupils who are choosing these subjects are performing at a high level outside of school. And that's not actually down to us. We've had many people join the courses, but what we're finding is more and more these qualifications have become very elite in terms of their grading, and it's really difficult for pupils who aren't performing to a high level outside of school to actually compete and get good grades because they don't have those. So if you're part of a dance group, if you're part of a football team, if you're part of a basketball team, if you're playing a musical instrument, you do the violin or you play the piano, absolutely great, no problem at all. If you're going to start doing those things, again, no problem at all. But if you're not doing those things, it becomes really difficult to compete on a level playing field with everybody else across the country. So it's just some guidance so you're there. It doesn't mean to say you can't. It's just a really strong recommendation, again, to help you in making those choices. Okay, so what else do you want to know? Well, hopefully some top tips. So number one, as I already mentioned before, is to look through the options handbook, and I'll show you where that is, and to read the questions on the online form in full. I hopefully have created the form, and we've used it now for 3 years. You're the third year to use it, and it makes it really easy because there's only a certain number of things you can choose from. But do have a look, make sure you have read them in full, and therefore you'll know what you're doing. Number two is watch all the videos. We want to get as much information as you can. The key thing here is that these choices are for you. So therefore, you want to know that, okay, I like this subject compared to that subject. I know what it is that I'm doing, and I know why it is that I'm doing it. You want to understand how you're going to be assessed. So I've talked already about that end of year exam. What does that look like? Whether it's coursework, whether there's an assessment, whether there's partly an exam, partly coursework, for example, design and technology, you're going to make your design woodwork or resistant material design, whatever that aspect might be, and whatever material, and then you're going to have an exam. So it's understanding how that process works for each subject so you know what to expect. Again, talk to parents, older siblings, and teachers. But, and I said this earlier on, remember, this is for you. Everybody will have an idea of what might be good, but you have got to be able to make that choice for yourself. Not for someone else, not for your best friend, not for your mum, because you think it'll make her proud. You've got to choose it for you, because ultimately this is opening up your future and the things you want to do in the future. We're hopefully helping you to shape your future. That's the key here. So make sure that this is going to unlock that journey wherever you want to go, whatever you want to do in the future. Make sure this is opening the door to those possibilities. Okay, keep your options open. Especially if you're not sure of a career yet. To be fair, I did not know what career I was going to do even when I got to university. So I am not expecting everyone right now to go, I am definitely going to go and do this. And if you're not sure, that's why that broad sweep of EBAC courses is really advisable. And that's why the government effectively have that high aspiration for it, for taking languages and for taking those humanities subjects, because they recognize that they are effectively the foundation for the majority of courses when you go into university. Okay, so some good reasons for choosing a subject. Right, number one, I need it for what I want to do in the future. Superb. Number two, I'm really interested in it. Therefore, when it gets tough and when it gets a bit tricky, or I've got homework to do, or I've got my coursework to do, I'll keep doing it because that's what you need to do. I enjoy the lessons and I enjoy learning about it. I get some of my best grades in it. Absolutely. If that's something you really enjoy and you're doing well in it, there is no reason you cannot carry on choosing it. So please be guided by that. And I'm good at the practical elements. Absolutely. If you are good hands-on, you enjoy that aspect, then absolutely, that's a really good reason to choose that course. But as you can probably imagine, if I've got some good reasons for choosing a course, I've also got some not so good reasons. So number one, that I've had many a time, I only chose it because my friend was choosing it. That is never a good reason, and it will almost certainly end in tears for you because you don't enjoy what you're doing. So you will have friends in whatever class you go into. Just make sure that you choose the subject that's right for you. I like my teacher this year, so I want them again next year. Unfortunately, there is only a certain number of teachers, and they may not be your teacher next year. In many cases, they are, but they will not always be the guaranteed. So please don't choose it just because you like your teacher. Someone else wants me to do it. As we talked about, mum, dad, grandma, granddad, they are wonderful people who want to support you, but you've got to do it for you. And I can't be bothered doing anything, so I'll just choose anything. That is never going to help you. I think that's obvious. And I want to please my mum and dad because they did the subject. And again, that's a lovely, lovely reason. But ultimately, you are you. And they are proud of you because of the good things you do. So choose well, choose wisely, and make the most of this opportunity to shape your journey going forwards. Okay, so as I talked about, I'm going to show you where this is on the website, and I'm going to give you a chance for question and answers. But just so you're aware, we effectively have a deadline of Friday, the 16th of February. That is Friday just before half term. And the idea being is that effectively next week, you're going to be speaking to your teachers, you're going to be thinking about what those options are, and the following week, your tutors are going to be tracking and making sure I'm going to be checking them, sending them an update every week, every day, just to make sure you have made your choice. And if you've done that, there's no problem at all. Effectively, it doesn't matter if you're the first person or the last person. We will take all of your options and we will then see what we can do. So there is no rush. It's not that I've got to have made my options today. It's effectively after that date. If you haven't chosen, then there'll be a problem because we're going to create the timetable from all of your options and after that date. So just make sure you've made your options before then. And effectively, as you go through, as you can see a little bit here, there's a drop-down field. So with your EBAC, there are these 5 subjects to choose from, so you can't go wrong. So I've tried to make it as easy as possible, but do make sure that when you come to choosing your second and third option, you choose different subjects. Don't choose the same subject twice, because obviously you can only do each subject once. Okay, so here we go. That's that second bit, second option. Again, just choose the next part. So every year we create the timetable in the best way we can. And the reality is we would love to make 100% of everybody's options work, but there is only a certain number of combinations that we can make work. So normally 95% of you will get your first choice option. So whatever you chose, 95% of you, we can normally get it to work. However, there is always a few, for whatever reason, for whatever combination, that we can't make it work. So we ask everyone to choose a reserve EBAC and a reserve other subject, just so that we can then plan that in and we will come and talk to you. So should that happen and should we have to use a reserve, we will come and talk to you. It's normally, as I said, only 5% of all the different options that are chosen that we need to come and talk to you about. So assume if we haven't spoken to you that you're probably getting your options. But the key thing is we need everyone to choose a reserve. And when you do choose a reserve, please make sure it's different to the subject you've already chosen. Okay, again, that 9 o'clock on Friday, the 16th of February is our deadline. Okay, so final things to consider just before we submit. As a parent, has your child selected a program of study that's suitable for them? So is it set at the right level? You know your child well, and probably if they're not quite sure, there's probably a good reason for that. Why has your child chosen history if they're doing really well in geography? Again, have those conversations. Your child has selected subjects that are very similar. Maybe they've chosen art and art photography. Is that the right option? That doesn't mean to say you can't do that, but is that the right option for them? Or have we narrowed down their options and that might impact what they can do in future? The key thing is we're trying to help everyone have a platform to go and be successful at whatever they want to be. Okay, so what will happen after you've all submitted your form, and I've kind of already talked a little bit to this. So the first bit is we ensure that everyone's filled it in correctly. We then input the data and see if we can create a draft timetable. Now, this includes all of your options. It's all the options of the year 8s into 9, who are copying what you've just done this year. It's all of the year 11s who are choosing their year 12 sixth form options. And it's also making sure we've got enough staff and enough classrooms. So it's not a small feat. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes us about 3 or 4 months to build a timetable and make sure everything works. So we will then communicate this at the first possible opportunity to you in June. But what I would probably suggest is if we haven't come and spoken to you, assume you're going to get your options. We will normally come and talk to you first rather than it just be a surprise. We will come and, as I said, talk to you if there's any concerns or if you've made choices which we think probably don't match your starting point. Again, we'll come and talk to you and we'll talk to your parents too. When there's a high demand for courses, so for example, construction is a really popular course, but due to the nature of bricklaying and the bricklaying workshop, we can only have 10 people in the class at a time. Now, that means we often run multiple classes, but there has, again, a limit to that capacity. So we can only have one on at a time, for example. So normally we can have 2 or 3 classes of construction. So there is a limit. That doesn't mean to say that you won't get on if you choose it. It's just to say that we have limits, and when we have limits, we have to therefore use some way to distinguish who's going to get on that course. So what we look at first is your attitude to learning, and we make sure that actually that's really positive. And if you've been doing all the things right from this point forwards, you've been committing to your studies in all subjects as well as you can, then absolutely we're going to prioritize getting you on the courses you want. Again, if your behavior and attendance is great and you're coming to school every single day and you're doing the right things, and again, we're going to prioritize you onto those courses. Clearly, that's about rewarding those people who are doing the right things every single day and trying to help you all to get to the destination of your choice. Equally, there are some people whose talents and strengths in line with their progress data and KS4 scores might then distinguish between those two things, and we'll say, okay, actually we know that for you this is really the right option. I've already had someone who I've spoken to already about construction, and they've explained about the nature of that for themselves. It doesn't mean to say they're guaranteed it, but I understand why that is a strong aspect for them. So again, it's us understanding those aspects along the journey. Okay, so where will you go to be able to find this information, and where will you go to fill in your form? I promise you it's only 2 more minutes. So first of all, there is a new section on the website called Curriculum, and you click on your Key Stage 4 options. That'll bring you to this page, and effectively, if you scroll down the page, you'll see there's this little link just here, and it says click here to access the online form. And so if you click on that, you can fill in that form at any point from now until 9 o'clock on the 16th. In this process, what I would encourage you to do is to have a look through and fill it in. If you then a week later or a few days later go, I've actually changed my mind from the information I've had, that's absolutely fine. You can go back in and resubmit your form, and we will just take the last version of what you submitted. So if you've got it wrong or you think, actually, I want to change my mind, you can absolutely go back in again and resubmit it. We will just take the last, whatever was the last version you put in. So don't worry about that at all. Just go back and make your corrections. Okay, we also have at the very bottom of this section of this page, here is the handbook. And on the next page is where we have our core videos. So we've got videos here from each of the subjects. We can see here English, maths and science and religious studies. Now they're core, everybody does those, but on the next page, so we can either click down again at the bottom to next page, or you can navigate to them through this section over here. You can jump to each of those options, and they're in alphabetical order, A through to Z. So you can have a look at the different subjects and go and see what it is you like about them, what it is they might be doing, so that you have that first-hand information from each of those subject leaders. Okay, so what are we going to do? So already in terms of support, last week, parents' evening, so that parents hopefully have that information, so that you guys are already upskilled on knowing what your child is doing well and where they're making progress, where they're doing really well, and what might be a strong subject for them. Today, I came into assembly and I spoke to all of you guys in year 9 to say, don't forget to come on to this process, but also to show you where to access those sections of the website. Next week in lessons, teachers are already prepped to be selling their subjects to you and saying why this one is a good one as opposed to that one, and thinking about what that might mean for you. And we also have the careers advisors that I mentioned earlier on, who are also available to advise and support. They've just asked, please make a request. So please send them an email through the inquiries email link and just say to careers team, and they will happily then pick up your child to have that conversation with them, to advise them on what options they might have. And equally, if you really want to be in here with them to hear that, again, that can be arranged. Tutors will then, as I said before, be checking in with you along the way, and in the week the week just before half term, they'll be checking in with you each morning to make sure that you've done it, and they'll be looking at the list, and anyone who's not, they'll then be prompting and checking in and just making sure you've got that support and everything's in place. Okay, so from me, we're at the point where we say good luck. Effectively, all the information is available on the website. I've given you loads of information, and this video will go back onto the website so that you can look at it back at any point. But I'm aware there is potentially the point where you might have questions that you want to ask. So I am going to now try and open up the chat and also look at any questions you might have. Maybe you raise your hand. So I'm going to hopefully allow you to unmute. So bear with me a second and I will see if I can do that. Okay, so at this point, if you do have a question, hopefully I've made it so you can unmute yourself at the point at which you want to speak. So I can see I've got a Lawrence Dufour. Lawrence, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you for a very clear presentation. So, is there a maximum amount of options that the pupils can choose? For example, my daughter might potentially be interested in 3 or even 4 of the EBAC subject and maybe 1 of the open. How does that work? Is there a maximum?
Yeah, so I'm afraid that effectively there is only so many hours, as we kind of showed at the beginning, that you have in your timetable. So therefore, there is a maximum of 3 subject options you can choose. One of them has to be an EBAC, and the other 2 options are any other. So it could be all EBAC, that would be fine, or it could be that they are 2 open from the open bucket, the other subjects that are in the kind of lighter coloured area. So you can choose any 3, provided one of them is EBAC. Again, you can then make that choice however fits best for you. But I'm afraid there isn't more time in the day, and also the reality is that for many of these pupils, they will have 8 or 9 subjects. That means generally 18 to 20 exams. And in science, for example, even if you do combined science, there's 6 exams. So there's a lot of exams, and just adding more doesn't necessarily help that process. So it's really about choosing the ones you kind of want to take on most at this stage. That doesn't mean to say you couldn't revisit them later on at A level, but it's about going, okay, which ones open my doors to the most possible options in the future.
Okay, so it could be 3 EBAC.
Yeah.
And just, sorry, quickly,
That's
another
okay.
follow-up question. I understand that for languages, you can only pick one. I mean, I spoke to Miss McQuail, but could it be both French and Spanish potentially?
Yeah, it potentially could. So effectively, if you put that in there, what we will then do is see whether we can make it work. So you can do French and Spanish, provided they're in different columns, and that's just the nature of the timetabling process. But normally, we would be able to effectively have pupils doing both. So that's not a problem at all. If you put it down there, we'll see if it's possible. I can't promise until everyone's made their choices clearly, because we timetable based on what everyone chooses, not based on what I want. But at the same time, it's normally possible to do both. So again, fill that in if that's what you prefer.
Sure, as long as it's obviously part of the maximum of 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, thank you.
That's okay. So I've got a few questions in the chat. So I'm going to start off by answering these. But again, if you do want to ask a question and unmute yourself, then please feel free to unmute yourself and put your hand up. So I've got, is there any way that they can do more than 3 so that a language and 3 other options? So the answer is no, as I hopefully I've just explained there. Yes, it's possible to choose more than 1 language. Yes, it's possible to choose more than 1 EBAC, but I'm afraid there can't be more. There isn't more time. And actually for the young people themselves, it wouldn't be helpful if we spread them across too many exams. For example, we've got dance, drama, business, and French. So the answer is no, we can't do 4 subjects. We could do 3. So that was the example. So yes, you can do French as your EBAC, and then you'd have to choose which 2 you'd want to do out of dance, drama, and business. And again, I appreciate that's not always an easy choice, but go and speak to those subjects, see what doors they open, and then decide which one's right for you. I've got another question. Is there a humanities option that combines history and geography? So the answer is no. There's not. Effectively, they are separate subjects and they look at slightly separate skills. But effectively, again, go and have a look at those videos. Go and speak to those subject leaders and your teachers, and you'll see how they're looking slightly different. And actually, therefore, they open the doors to slightly different routes of what you might want to do in the future. But again, it's down to you to choose which one you feel is best, or both. And there are some pupils in year 10 right now who do both geography and history. If that's what you want to do, that's absolutely fine. When do you find out about combined versus separate science? So normally we do that in the final half term of the summer. And again, that's because we are guiding students now through their combined science, whether they do foundation, higher or triple. And all we're trying to do is help each person get to the best grade combination they can. And we want them to be successful because ultimately that's what opens up the most doors. So we assess you through year 9. And when we get to that process towards the half term, May half term, we'll have used all your assessments through year 9. And we can then say, okay, right, for you, based on your grade scores, we think the most likely option for you is to go this route. Just to explain that a little further, triple science, if you are getting grades 5 and above, triple science is probably the right route for you, as there are more grades of 7, 8s, and 9s. If you are getting grades somewhere between 3 and 6, then it's normally combined science higher. And if you're getting grades 1 to 4, then it would normally be combined science foundation. So again, we'll be effectively working on that with your children to go guide them on what's the best route. Okay, another one about when do you find out about triple? And so the guidance therefore is when, and so that is at May half term. Okay, is there anyone else who has a question? Okay, so I'm going to say that I'm aware that sometimes people like to. Oh, hello, I can hear someone
I've got a
unmuted.
question.
Yep,
I just want to fill in the form, and
yep.
you have to do. So she's chosen her options, and then when it comes to the reserve options,
Yep.
that you have to choose an EBAC, don't you? Second one.
So it will effectively the first EBAC. It will say here's an EBAC reserve, and you just have to choose one from that
And
list again.
if she's chosen history as her third option, not EBAC,
Yep.
as her EBAC reserve, can she choose history?
Yes, she can do. The reality is, I hope that I can make all the options work, and if it doesn't
Yeah,
work, I'll come back to you.
perfect.
But the
That's
key thing
fine.
is, as long as the first EBAC is different to the reserve EBAC, that's
Yeah,
fine.
perfect. Thank you.
That's okay. Anyone else got any other questions? Because the more I answer now, the easier it is for everybody. So please don't feel embarrassed or worried. There's always some questions.
It's me.
Hello?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, I was just wondering. My son swims quite a lot after school, and so we're just wondering about the triple science, how it would work. About like, is it a specific day, or
Yes.
do you get to know that? And
Yes, yes, it is. So we put it in the timetable, and so effectively it's then the same day every week. So it becomes really consistent, easy to plan around. So at the moment it's been Thursday. I expect that to continue, but I'm aware we're also looking at parents' evenings to try and make that easier for people too. So I don't want to guarantee it'll be Thursday, but that's what it's been this year, that effectively it's every Thursday, they just stay till 4 o'clock. And so that means most people can then plan their routines around that process. But I appreciate I as an athlete myself, I understand there's a balance to be had when you're doing those two different things. So again, it's not for me to tell you what is or isn't possible, but we will give that timetable as quickly as we can. Okay, no problem. Any other questions?
Mr. Lacey, is the BTEC courses equivalent to one GCSE or more?
Yes, so effectively they're graded slightly different, but yes, they are equivalent in terms of they get grades that will then access two different courses. So yes, absolutely. From a points-based situation, they get effectively the same level of points and therefore open up the doors in the same way. So don't worry too much about that. It's more about the fact that they're assessed differently, if that makes sense. That's the more important aspect rather than whether or not they're equivalent or not.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Can I just ask about the screen that said open subjects?
Yeah.
So if she chooses one EBAC subject, then out of the others, can it be any of those?
Yes, effectively, you can, as long as everyone has to choose one EBAC, and then you can choose any two from anywhere else in there.
From anywhere else, it doesn't have to be per column or anything then?
No, absolutely not. They're just there to try and make you kind of see the grading, I suppose, from BTECs through to GCSE level. So EBACs generally are the ones that have the greatest level of exam content, and BTECs the least level of exam content. So I've just set them out in that way, but it doesn't matter which ones you choose. That's more about what's right for you and your child.
Right, okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's okay. Any other questions? Okay, right then. At this point, I am going to stay here for another 5 minutes or so, but I appreciate that we've kind of dried up the questions for the minute, but sometimes some people like to ask them at the end when there's not so many people on. So I'm going to say thank you very much, everybody. I apologize for the issues with the way I displayed the screen at the start. But other than that, thank you very much for being here. And if you do need to, please email in and we will try and get back to you ASAP because we recognize that there's a very short time frame. Thank you very much. Good evening and good night, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye, Matt.
Thank
Bye, Matt.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.